Hawkeye was like, why has this arc felt like Kaido wasn't the main villain until Act 3? Orochi seemed like the main villain for Act 1 and 2 for me. But because that's true. Because that's true. So normally, let's pretend. So, okay, let's play pretend. Playing pretend here, all right? So let's play pretend and say that this is the end of the arc. So the arc just closed, okay? So usually what happens over the course of an arc is basically somewhere in the story, and definitely at the midpoint of the story, which if this is the full story, we would say that, hey, that's arguably midpoint. You could argue is something around the time of Yasuo's death or something. Somewhere around there, the villain does something really major and devastating that hits the protagonist pretty hard and changes things in some way for them, right? So for any arc, you can kind of look at that and be like, okay, well, that's like Arlong taking Nami's money, right? Obviously, technically, it was the Marines who took it, but Arlong was the one who orchestrated that and had that happen, right? And he's the one that she came running to all mad about, right? Alabasta, it was Operation Utopia beginning, so the king being framed, the civil war being triggered, etc. Crocodile, the person behind all of that, right? Dressrosa, it's the birdcage starting, right? There's like every arc you can find, like Water 7 Enies Lobby, it's basically Lucci revealing himself, taking Robin away, etc., right? You could argue it happened again in the Sea Train where they tried again and Lucci took it away, right? So always at some point towards the middle part of the story, especially, the villain is doing something that's very, very bad that really establishes them as the villain and the threat that they pose, the stakes that come with them, what they're kind of about, why the protagonist really feels strongly about defeating them, okay? With Wano, it's a little different, and this plays into the raid failing idea, right? But we're playing pretend and saying that that's not the case, right? So in Wano, it's a little different in that Kaido never had a moment like that. The most active Kaido was in Act 1, but Act 1 really wasn't like much of a ways through this. We were literally day 1 in Wano. It was like Luffy's first 20 minutes, like, or hour in Wano or something. And Kaido swooped in and like took him out or whatever. But the plot of the story of what, like, that was more like a prologue, right? The plot of the story of Wano really plays out over the course of Act 2 and 3. Act 1 was just basically like just establishing that they're in Wano, this is what Wano's like, and relocating Luffy from Kuri to Udon, okay? So, looking at the story of Wano, the darkest point was definitely Yasuo's death that we've gotten so far, right? And the person responsible for Yasuo's death was Orochi, not Kaido. Kaido was a detached figure for pretty much the entirety of the Wano arc. So he was a detached figure for pretty much the entirety of the Wano arc. None of the bad stuff that they're going through, not that they're going through much, but let's say Yasuo's death, right? Even the one particularly bad thing that happens right around then, that's an Orochi thing, right? Similarly, a little before, that whole Shogun's Palace situation where, like, you know, Komurasaki, Toko, like, Orochi going crazy, everything, that's also Orochi. So Orochi was basically the figure that was the bad guy figure doing bad guy things. Kaido is kind of, he's just chilling. Kaido is not, like, he hasn't done really anything bad whatsoever across the entirety of Wano. Once the rooftop battle starts, that's when people start, like, trying to fight him and things like that, but he hasn't actively done that much to the people of Wano or in general, right? So that's why he's different than all of the other protagonists, because he has yet to do an actually truly villainous thing. You know what I mean? But again, that plays into why I think there's more to the arc.